Well, good morning or afternoon, or I guess whatever time it is for you, but hello everybody, and welcome to the start of lesson 2. As you can see, we are at the wonderful home of the Arch Clay Core, which is honestly a very good boss for learning PVM because of this right here. The fact that you can add and remove mechanics as you get more comfortable, kind of changing what you need to do. So we're going to be starting this lesson here, and we're only going to be having one mechanic, and it's the Frost Cannon. And the reason for this is in this lesson, we're going to be actually using prayers. Now, we're not going to be doing active like soul split flicking or anything like that, but we will just have an overhead prayer or curse of some kind active. So I won't be using soul split. I'll just be using the protection prayers in this lesson, and that is simply because we are also adding a manual input of defensives. So this lesson is going to revolve around just kind of slowly integrating defensives into your rotations. So with that said, we're going to start with melee, the kit. If you've watched lesson 1, for all 3 styles, the kit has not changed. I'm not changing any of the gear. I'm going to keep that gear consistent until some of the later lessons where we might need to do a couple tweaks as we move up in, boss difficulty. But for now, nothing's changed. So with that, let's get started. The quick recap is just bandos, whatever pocket slot, honestly, whatever ring you want. The real big ones, the big, I guess, 4 would be your offhand tier 85 Lang, which if it's cheaper and you want to use a Drygore, you can. The Scourge is really the main bread and butter of this, and then your 2 healing sources, your Vamp Gloves and your Blood Amulet. Revobar is still the same, of Meteor, your Bleeds, Zerk, Rend, Adaptive, Overpower, and Assault, and just a max cape. If you have a Zuck cape, great, go for it, but at this point in our lessons, I'm not assuming anyone has it. So let's get started and kind of walk through a kill. So for this, we're going to be just camping the Protect from Magic Prayer. We'll use a sip of plain Overload, and we're just going to kind of let our abilities roll through. And as you can see, we have our first mechanic, well, only mechanic in this case, the cannon coming up. So we're going to use Anticipate and Resonance. And now what's cool about that is because of how the Frost Cannon works is if you have low health, you can turn off your prayer if you want to, and it will give you a massive heal. So that's the reason why we're using those 2 is because no matter what your adrenaline situation is on your revolution bar, you can always use those because they don't cost adrenaline. It's not like Reflect or Devotion or Debilitate where you actually have to have a certain amount of adrenaline. You can use those freely at any point because they actually build adrenaline, they don't consume it. So once again, we're getting our mechanic coming in, and with the cannon, it can roll anywhere on the right side, the center, or the left side. So again, once we see that we're starting, we're going to use our Anticipate, we're going to use our Resonance, and we're good to go. And after that, after this one, I should say, I'm going to do one more kill, and I'm just going to not use Resonance just to show you kind of how much damage you would take should you not notice it, you miss it. As long as you camp your magic prayer, you would be alright to go. So we're gonna just wait real quick for one more, and then yeah, we'll kind of let it roll. I'm probably going to try and not let Berserk or Overpower or something like that cast, just for the sake of making sure I get it. I think I should get it. Shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, we'll be alright. So I'm gonna not use any of my defensives just so you can kind of see what happens here. So we do get points, but it is not a terrible amount. It's only 2,000, and that's with our prayer up. So, should I not have the prayer up? And let's see, I think I can just stall this fight for a second. Let's see if I can get it again. Unless, of course, the Scourge Bleeds are gonna take the Clay Core out, which is entirely possible. But I'm going to turn off my Magic Prayer, and the Scourge Bleeds took it out. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna cut real quick to another kill. So I'm going to turn off my prayer here, and just so you can kind of see how much damage this will do, it's a lot, right? It was what, 7,700, almost 8,000. If you're in your Zerk, it might kill you, but if you're not in your Berserk, just keep that in mind, that if you miss it, if you run out of prayer, if something goes terribly, terribly wrong, you're fine. It won't kill you in one shot, right? It's not going to be a problem. However, what I can now do is show you the actual intended purpose of that resonance, and then we'll move on to the other styles, and they will be the exact same. So, just coming up with that, we use our resonance, and it is just a full heal. So, if you want to, you could always add some shield switches for a bigger resonance or anything like that, but we're not worrying about switches right now. The bone shield is plenty, and that is melee Clay Core. Let's move on to the next. So here we are, same thing for magic. If you need to, you can use your animate dead, obviously, but we are just going to be hanging out. Now, see, we did our sunshine. Now, if I stand here, I might still be able to stay in it. I can. But that is, again, the downside of the sunshine is that it is in a static position, so you have to stay relatively close to it in order to actually get that damage boost. But it's the same exact thing, right? We're just letting our revolution bar ride. We're going through. Now, if you get it again, if you didn't kill it in time, your resonance should be up, right? Like it's right about now when it would happen, so it shouldn't be a problem. But if you need to, you can always kind of like manually click on your basics to make sure you have high adren and use something like Reflect, Devotion, or Debilitate. Or again, as we showed with melee, just by having your magic prayer up, it's not going to hit you very hard, and then you can just resonance every other. But that's all that is, and let's move on to range and show the final one of Clay Core, and then we'll move on. So we're now doing our ranged, and now Clay Core is a poisonable boss, so in this instance the Wyvern Crossbow is actually rather helpful. So we're going to be just kind of rolling through, doing our stuff. Cannon's coming, anticipate and resonance. Now I will say the reason we anticipate first is just to build that muscle memory, because should you push into hard mode, the cannon does stun you, so just kind of making your default to throw anticipate beforehand so you don't get stunned is just kind of good practice. Now in this particular instance you don't actually have to do that. You can just use resonance freely, but it's just kind of good to build that practice, right? Same deal, we're using the Onyx Criminal Bolts. Because Clay Core is poisonable, if you wanted to, you could use Emerald Criminal Bolts. Those do poison damage, so it would help your output. You could actively use your weapon poison. I think the Overload War out, so you can use that. But that's really all this is just kind of getting you started of, you know it's coming, you have adrenaline, right? So maybe before you actually waste your adrenaline, maybe you want to use something like a reflect. You can drop your prayer and let's watch the damage. See, so now he's going to get hit back for 4,800, so that was like a free 5,000 damage, just kind of given back to us. Just a bunch of different options on how you want to do it. Really whatever your comfort level is or whatever your adrenaline situation is. But either way, hopefully this is just kind of, again, a way for you to get started with just adding in a couple manual inputs here and there. Anticipate, let's do reflect again, because why not? Now see, that time it was only 1,600, and that's because I left my prayer on. So obviously if you want that reflect to hit harder, you need to get hit harder, so you need to drop your prayers. But regardless, let's move to the next one. Hopefully this kind of is the intro to just clicking a couple abilities, and those being just defensive based, not active PVM abilities like offensive abilities. Okay, so as you can see, we are now at God Wars Dungeon 2. And same thing, we're just going to be camping prayers. We're not going to be doing soul split or anything. But this will kind of just be a little bit harder hitting for our defensive use. So we're going to start with Vindicta on melee. Now, instead of doing all 4 bosses in all 3 styles, which would be me rambling for a long time and make this a lot longer of a video, I'm just going to do each boss in 1 style, and then we'll kind of wrap around, so one's going to get 2 styles, just to kind of show. But at the end of the day, all 4 bosses will work with all 3 styles, as long as you kind of follow the little tidbits that each boss individually has, right? So we'll start with Vindicta, and we'll just hop on in. We're gonna pray melee against Vindy. Now, Vindy's main mechanic, which will be coming up in a little bit, is or I should say main source of damage, honestly, is the magic purple fire. Now, if you want to, when that comes, you absolutely, or we'd skip it. But when that comes, you can swap to your magic prayer, or you could just move out of the way, which is what we're going to do. Now I get this kill was relatively quick, but here's the fire there, so you can see it's hitting for a lot of, so you can just move out, right, because it was hitting for a lot of magic damage, or you could just swap to mage prayer. Either way, it works just fine, but the main point of this, which I'm going to get to now, hopefully my Zerk will be on cooldown, but I'll also just manually stall out a little bit just to make sure that I get that flame in the first phase, just to kind of show a little bit of stuff. So we're just going to manually do a couple basics and make this go a little bit slower. And I'm just going to do an assault so we don't have Zerk. So it's going to be coming in a second now. And when it does, waiting, so we can swap to our mage prayer, right? But it's still hitting very hard. So if you find yourself low, we're going to see he just did 1 auto attack, and he's going to hit that ranged auto attack. So that's a good point if you want to use resonance. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that hit come through. I'm going to use resonance, and that range, it gave me a little chunk of healing back. Alternatively, we could always just use reflect, swap to our mage prayer, and then it's not really hitting all that hard, which gives you plenty of time to move out of the way. Now, all of this is being prefaced with the fact that I'm not touching my food. My book's not on, a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm not actually using a real familiar. So I know if you're at this point in learning, you probably don't have like the 120 combat stats. The fight will probably be going a little longer for you. So obviously, use your food. Use an overload if you want to. Use whatever pocket slot you have. Use any familiar that might help you do damage. If that's, like a steel titan, if that's, who knows, even if it's just a pack familiar that just holds more food, whatever you need to do is totally fine. So the magic mage is coming. We're gonna use this. Maybe we'll just throw a debilitate. Oh no, we're getting low. Let's eat a shark. We're out of the way, and we're totally fine. We can swap back to melee. Now, obviously, you could just click out of the way instantly the moment you see it, and then you don't need to swap to mage at all. But I'm just trying to show, there's a bunch of options on how to deal with something like that, where it's a static just point of a lot more damage taken. So we'll use a resonance, get that ranged. Of course, too much damage, but that's alright. So, that being said, that same concept is for all the styles, and it's actually a little bit easier with range and mage because obviously you can move out of the fire and you're still doing damage. You don't need to like have Findy following you or anything like that. But that's Findy, and that's really the only big thing to worry about is that magic and just mitigating it somehow, be it prayers, moving out of the way, devotion, whatever you have adrenaline for. And it's really that simple. So we're going to move on to the next boss and the next style. So, as you can see, we are at now the Twin Furies, and we're going to be using magic. Again, if you need your animate dead, go for it. I'm just using penance just kind of for the sake of not wanting to deal with prayer. But we're going to hop right in, and these ones you'll notice, there's two of them, right? And this is going to be a lot of more movement based than defensive, so we're going to see that she's going to be chasing us around, and you just want to get out of her way. Now, you can see the sunshine was dropped, right? Which kind of makes it a little bit more inconvenient because I can't follow that around. But that said, we're going to be, for prayers, looking at what damage do we think we're taking the most of. It's either melee or range, so we'll just use one of those, right? And now when she runs over here, the main thing here is you want to stand under her, right? Because there's where this kind of void is, where you're not taking damage. Otherwise, all of this would hit you very hard. But here, we see our health is pretty low, so we can do something like reflect and just kind of mitigate the damage we're taking as we're eating food. And now for this mechanic, right there, you can see this bar charging down, which is going to be an explosion. So maybe we do something like a debilitate, anticipate, eat a piece of food, use like a resonance of some kind, which of course just got sniped because I did it a little too early. But the point is, it didn't kill me, but that is kind of like you're starting of they're projecting a big attack, right? You're getting that notifier that something is going to be happening, and to just be prepared for it. Again, our health is low. Do something like reflect, we eat a piece of food, whatever we need to do. You can use your resonance, but this fight, again, it's just showing that defensives will help mitigate, choosing the right prayer, be that either melee or range, depending on what you think you're taking more damage, and the combat triangle, sorry. But also, on this one, I'm going to just throw on Animate Dead, just so you kind of see the change in damage taken, and what Animate Dead actually kind of can do for you. Oh, so I got hit by that, so I'm going to take a little bit of damage, but that's okay. I'm running back to my Sunshine, which, again, the only downside to magic is it's in a static position, so she runs like exactly that right over here. Well, I have to stay over here if I don't want to take a ton of damage, which of course is not very helpful. And now you'll see I'm only taking melee damage, so it makes sense for me to swap to my melee prayer. Again, my health is low. Let's use something like Reflect. Let's chomp on a piece of food, maybe a Debilitate. And then you're just letting your revo bar go. So you obviously don't want to stand in that fire. It kind of hits you pretty decently hard. And now we're waiting for this to run down. And you can time it, right? We'll wait for it, and rezo, and it pops, and it did no damage, right? It kind of mitigated that entirely, which is very nice. Again, low health, she's running around, so let's be careful. Eat a piece of food, get out of the way. So this fight, as you can see, is a lot more input heavy. There's a lot more going on. It's a lot more stressful than Vindicta. So, you know, if you want a resonance in there just because, whatever you need to do to kind of make sure that fight goes your way, goes smoothly. But that same thing applies for, again, all three styles, or all four, depending on if you're using Necro and you're just using this as kind of a baseline guide. But that is Twins, and now we'll move on to the next boss, and Ranged. Okay, we are at Hellweir, and we're using Ranged, and the reason for this and why I chose this is because Hellweir is poisonable, right? So at Hellweir and at Greg, which will be next and last, the Wyvern crossbow will really kind of shine, as well as your weapon poison if you choose to use it. So that is the main reason that I opted for Ranged for Hellweir. But same thing, we're going to run in, and for him, we're just going to be using our protection from melee. We're going to hang out anywhere. And these mushroom spawn, so another thing why Ranged and melee are nice here is because he has a lot of kind of abilities that would potentially cause you to move, and with ranged and melee you can just run around and move. So this flailing one, you can just kind of get out of the way, and you'll see on your debuff bar you have this bleed. If you use freedom, it'll just remove it entirely. Now just keep in mind, if you use freedom while he's flailing around, it's going to refresh itself. So there, mushroom spawned. So maybe we need something like a little kind of damage mitigation because we're getting hit pretty hard, right? So now we're bleeding, but we don't want to use freedom quite yet because he's going to do his flailing nonsense. So let's get out of the way. And let's just eat some food. You see I haven't signed there because, again, I'm just kind of blabbing and I'm not really paying attention. But really, whatever defensives you have at your disposal, let's get rid of the bleed. Let's use that freedom. Let's eat some food. You'll see you take a lot of damage. I'm getting bled again. And you know what? I'm going to use Barricade because I can, and I have the adrenaline for it at that point. So why not? Now we're taking that again. Let's surge away, eat a piece of food. And now, unfortunately for us, right, freedom's on cooldown. But we can still just use our defensives so we don't get absolutely bodied by those bleeds. Eat some food, do what you need to do. We're, of course, spawning in on another mushroom. So again, move around, eat some food, do what you need to do, run away. And that should be the kill. So as you can see, he hits very hard, even through prayers. So it's something that requires a lot more movement and input, and it's much more random because the mushrooms can spawn on any of these little caps. It's 3 at a time in normal mode. So this is probably a fight where you definitely want to use your weapon poison. You probably want to use an overload. There's just a lot more sources of damage taken. So let's dive out of here. Use another shark. Now, since I dove, he missed me entirely with the bleed, which that's pretty cool, right? But now let's use devotion here, and you can see this whole thing is doing absolutely no damage, right? Devotion is a huge tool that helps in every boss. So definitely something to get used to using. But as you can see, his health is, even with the weapon poison, he does take a little bit of time when you're learning to kill. So it's definitely something that you want to be wary of. So we're waiting for him to be done. We use our freedom, clear that bleed. Again, defensives are your friend, right? That's the whole point of this, is trying to take damage. Don't be afraid of eating food. Don't be afraid of using defensives. Just do what you need to do to get the kill. So we have that bleed coming. Well, it came, and he's going to be doing this, so let's use our devotion. We canceled our rapid fire, but honestly, surviving is more important than doing damage, right? So we're okay, and that should be enough for pretty much the rest of the kill. Use the reflect, and that's that. So again, just use those defensives. They are your friend, right? Especially if you're on normal prayers, if you don't have soul split, then your main source of damage mitigation and healing obviously is your food and your defensives. So don't be too timid to use those. It's not all about damage. Defensives are there for a reason. Okay, and we are now at the 4th and final boss of God of War's Dungeon 2. Now, when I say that, same with God of War's Dungeon 1, I'm obviously excluding Nex and Telos, right? So, quote unquote, the 4th and final boss of God of War's Dungeon 2. So, Greg is also poisonable, so weapon poison would be great here. If you have the money for it, Cinderbanes, or with range, the Wyvern crossbow, things like that. Turning on your book, because Greg notoriously hits very hard, would be a wonderful idea here. Use your overload, use whatever you've got. But the main thing that I'd like to point out for Greg is that he does poison you as well. He does a lot of poison damage. So you need to mitigate that. And you have 2 ways of doing that. You can either use anti-poison, or what I opted for is you can use Venom Blood perk. It's a very easy perk to get, so you don't need anything additional with it. You can ignore the reflexes and mobile. That's just for some other shenanigans, but it doesn't influence the kill in any way. But the reason I would suggest Venom Blood over an anti-poison is Venom Blood as a perk on your armor is permanent, right? It's forever, it's unchanging, it just is. Whereas if you use an anti-poison, he actually drains the timer, so you don't even get the full timer and effect and value out of an anti-poison. You're basically going to be just chugging them constantly, which, as learning a boss and getting into PVM, that is a source of money dumping that you do not want to do. So, I would suggest Venom Blood. Obviously, if you don't have Invention unlocked, if you're not at that point, if you don't have a perk, if you don't want to, whatever, you can use anti-poisons, but I would recommend that. And now the other reason why we're doing melee here is because the melee kit with its heals, and if you're getting absolutely destroyed. You can swap this with a Vampirism Scrimshaw. The heals in the kit is just insane, so it really makes surviving here actually much easier. In the past, that was not the case. Melee was the notorious if you use it, you die style, but because of how they've adapted it, it's actually very forgiving now. So, with that said, let's get into a kill, and I will show you exactly what I mean. So, for him, we're going to be praying ranged the whole time. Now, again, I'm not going to use the overload at the pocket slot, but if you find that this is a very difficult fight, I would highly recommend it. But the main thing here is we want these defensives, because you can see he is hitting hard even through, right? So we got our Zerk coming up. Now, I would personally want to wait and see until I have enough for devotion, because that's going to save me a lot of stress for quite some time. And now, so even with all of this, we're getting, bodied pretty hard. So maybe we, wait for more defensives to come up and kind of roll through. So you can see all of these clones, they hit really hard. There's a lot going on that makes this fight not very fun for a lot of people. Because just that one kill, I almost died a couple times, right? And I used every single defensive I have. So let's take a sip of the overload and kind of see just how that changes it. And we're going to do it again. And just keep in mind, on this time, we're going to be focusing on his mechanics. And in that, I mean the rain that he does. So we're just going to open up with defensives right off the gate, right? Because he is hitting hard, and we don't want to die. We got our Zerk coming. Maybe not the best, right? If you are finding yourself getting absolutely destroyed here, maybe you pull Zerk off the bar just so you don't take that extra damage, but it does make you do a lot more. So here, you can see these kind of rainfalls. We want to make sure we're staying out of the way of those. Now, let's throw a resonance in there, along with another reflect, eat some food, right? As you can see, clearly, Greg is notorious for being the hardest of the four, and that's why he just does tons of damage. He moves around like crazy. He spawns his clones. He has his poison. He just does a lot of damage. So he's definitely kind of gonna be your final boss of the four main God Wars Dungeon 2 bosses. And you'll find if you're using ranged, definitely use that the weapon poison. You want as much damage as you can get. If you're using magic, I would suggest using Animate Dead. Is that a penguin? That's a penguin. We're getting the penguin. Oh, he's gonna get the penguin. Yeah, you can have it. I would suggest using Animate Dead, and you'll find that fight, even with all that, is not the most easy fight. But with that said, we are going to move on to our final boss of Lesson 2, and that is going to be the Rex Matriarchs. So, I will see you there in a second. So, we are here at the final boss of Lesson 2, and that is these three, the Rex Matriarchs. These three are style specific. There is the fourth one, Osseous, who is the one for Necromancy. So again, if you're using Necromancy, you're going to go over to him, and there's tons of guides for Osseous as is, so there you go. But for these three, they can only be damaged by their specific style. Now, all three of them can be poisoned. So if you have Cinderbanes, you can use Cinderbanes over the Vamp Gloves. Weapon Poison, wonderful addition. And we will be using a Sip of Overload because these three can hit pretty hard. So Rathis is our melee, Orichalca is our magic, and Penthraken is our ranged. So we're going to be starting with the melee one, and it kind of ties into the Greg kill. Rathis also does poison you. So, because our melee gear already has Venom Blood from Greg, it is perfect to then transition straight into Rathis. Now again, if you're not using that, just use anti-poison of some kind. But with that said, we have our Revo bar. We're going to be playing ranged, and let's hop right on into it. So you're gonna just spawn in. You're gonna get aggroed. No, you're not. So you're gonna zoom over. Thought she was gonna see me for a second, and then you're just gonna start your kill. Playing ranged. We're gonna take our overload sip, and we're just letting it ride. Now the first thing we're gonna get is this giant pool of poison just dumped on your head, right there. That's where you want to use your anti-poison, or again, we have Venom Blood. You can see that pool is slowly whittling away until it's nothing. Now, if this kill is going very slow for you, that pool will eventually get absorbed and actually heal the boss. So if you find that it's going really slow, the damage is rough, it's lacking, you can also stand on this pool to absorb it and make sure that that doesn't happen, that heal doesn't go through. But if you find that you're standing in that poison and you're taking a ton of damage, but again, if this is your baseline setup, but maybe you're using Trigors or just the tier 85 Scourge or tier 85 Lings, and you're not doing quite as much damage, so I'm just gonna do an assault to kind of force the not Zerk from happening, just so I do a little less damage. You can use your defensives. You can kind of run over to this one. You can hang out on it just so that heal is less. Now, it's ranged, right? So you can't actually attack back while you're hanging out over here, unfortunately. But that alone, we can stall this out a little bit. You're going to see that there's going to be the animation soon saying that the poison is being absorbed. There it is, and you can see it kind of traveling over, and it strengthens, and you saw the heal come through. Now, the bigger that pool is, the bigger that heal's going to be. So, again, you can ignore them entirely, or you can stand on them until they physically are gone entirely, like they're completely wiped from the screen, right? That is entirely your decision to make based on how the kills are going. But that's just where that is, and that's where a lot of the sources of the hiccups can be, because that heal, if your damage is not crazy, if you're not rolling through the kill super quick, that heal can kind of almost ruin the kill if you can't out DPS the amount of healing that happens. So just be mindful of that, and let's move on to the next Rex Matriarch. So we are back at the next one. This one is by far harder, right? They kind of almost go in order of difficulty of easier, medium, and harder. But I would say that these two are probably equally difficult, but definitely harder than Rathis. So if you have the runes for it, and you want to, you can use Ice Barrage, and you can put that on a key, and you can press that key. You can stun this boss. You can keep it in place if you have a spellbook swing for like Entangle, something like that. You can, if you want to manually spam your impact to stun, you can. This fix also stuns. There's a lot of ways you can keep this boss kind of stuck in place, so that way, because Orichalca hits with melee, so if you keep them stunned, you're using magic, you stay out of range, you won't actually take any damage. So there are ways to do that. we are not going to be doing that. We're just going to kind of let the kill happen. We're going to get hit, and we're going to kind of show the mechanics that happen, and how you can deal with them if you so choose. But again, overload. We're going to throw on our animate dead because we have that in our toolkit. We're going to be praying melee, and we are going to begin. So Orichalca is weak to fire, so inherently camping our Exsanguinate is a great option here because it's a fire spell. It's going to increase your accuracy, your damage, all that. So as you can see, we're just stalling out here. That Sphinx is running, but now that was a big magic hit. So when you see that tail swipe, that's also a great time to use Resonance for a big heal. And you can see all of our cooldowns are going crazy slow because of this debuff. Now, if you want to fix that, you can go in there, but it's gonna hurt. So, if you have the health, you want to throw on the defensives and hop into one of those, you certainly can, or you can just wait it out. So I'm just going to use Reflect because you can see that I was standing near it. It was chunking me pretty hard, and my health dropped very quickly, even with Animate Dead. It's not going to kill you instantly, but you can see, yeah, it's hitting pretty hard. Definitely not something that you want to just be camping inside that eruption. So we might kill it beforehand. If we don't, so right there was you can see they popped up even though the animation didn't happen. So what we're gonna do on this next kill is before that frost mechanic comes, we're gonna kind of be anticipating it, and we're gonna be using that for hopefully a pretty big heal that should offset a lot of the damage that you take. And again, as long as you pay attention to the ground and you just move around, you don't stand still inside those little eruptions, you should be totally fine. So we're going to just be doing our damage. We got our sunshine, and now we're just hovering over our resonance. We're getting ready to see that animation. So it's going to be coming in just a second. Wait for it, and I missed it. Go figure. But it is what it is. Again, it doesn't absolutely ruin the kill or anything by missing that. It's just something to practice if you want to, of how to get some good heals. Again, you can use your defensives, and we're just through. It should be done in a second, so you don't need to go into that eruption. Just be mindful of them, but you can zoom over to them if you want to dive out, some kind of something like that. That is entirely the choice of you, the PVMer, right, on how the kill's going and how you want to handle it. Got another eruption, and I could be mistaken, but I believe we're going to get another frost thing coming up. So I probably resoed too early that time, but okay, I was mistaken. That's alright. Again, you can still just use reso freely because it's still a heal, right? Doesn't matter if you use it. You can drop your prayer for a bigger heal, for one of the autos, whatever you need to do. But as long as you're kind of just paying attention, it's really not a difficult fight. And we'll move on to the final one. So we are now at the final of the three, the ranged one, and you will notice one change to the kit. You buy them from any Slayer Master, the insulated boots. Pendraken has a lightning attack that hits very hard if you don't dodge it. If you are learning, I would say use the insulated boots, just so if you miss the dodges, it makes that damage a lot less. However, once you get comfortable, once you are fine with dodging it, moving around, all that, you can definitely swap back to your fleeting boots, just for more damage. But beyond that, nothing has changed. and we're going to get right into it. You're going to see Penthraken actually has a much more, I say, like displayed or projected attack that you can resonance for a pretty big heal. We're going to be camping our magic prayer or curse or whatever, and we're going to roll right into it. So you're going to see she's going to do this like tail swing and launch kind of a big ranged rock at you. Our health is good, so we don't need to, but I do resonance like right, well, not right now, but there's the lightning that if you don't get out of the way, the insulated boots will help you a lot. And right there, that tail swing and that 2000, that was the big ranged hit that you can resonance that for a pretty big heal. And you can see this blue bar cooling down, lightning's going to come down on our head, and we're going to move out of the way. Now, if you move out of the way, like on the right tick, it won't hit you at all. But I had the insulated boots, so it wasn't all that terrible. Resonance for that big chunky heal. But again, if you're used to this dodging, moving out of the way of that, of the lightning, you can swap to your fleeting boots and you'll be good to go. So again, we're just moving out of the way of the lightning. Maybe our health is getting a little low, so we queue up a debilitate or something. There's that ranged hit. You could quickly swap if you want to as well, but I'm not trying to do any kind of prayer flicks or anything like that. So we'll eat a bite of food again, and we will wait. That range is going to come again, so we're getting ready. There's the tail, there's the reso, there's the heel, right? Just kind of makes life easy. We throw a reflect in there, and we're just rolling through the kill. So this one has a bunch of moving parts as well, but they're fairly projected and easy to kind of see once you get used to it. So again, you can swap to your fleeting boots once you get used to that. That big ranged hit is a wonderful heal opportunity, or it's a great place to kind of, if you want to start practicing prayer flicks, of you see it, flick to range, then flick back to mage. That's entirely up to you as you want to progress and kind of continue growing. Otherwise, you can use your defensives at your disposal. And with that said, that is the end of lesson 2, where we are just breaking into some prayers and some defensives. Hopefully this helps, and I will see you all in lesson 3 when we get a little bit more tricky. Good luck, everyone.